Yes, I think the state should impose Christian values on the society. Yes.
Very interesting nowadays. I don't even know what left means anymore because for different people it means completely different things. For some people it means they are not friendly enough towards business. So what does left mean to you?
This is the power of media. This is the power of a good story. A good story can conquer minds and souls, even if it's a fake story. But if it's powerful enough and the narrative is good, if it's catchy enough, it goes viral.
But aren't you afraid that fascism could rise again and actually lead to violence?
I like many things about conservatives, but this measure I find it completely abusive and stupid.
So you agree that being associated with Russia is a bad thing or being a legionary is a bad thing?
Hi, my name is Ariel Pontes and this is the Ghostless Machine podcast. This conversation was a bit different from my previous ones, so before I introduce my guest and jump into the discussion, I feel the need to say a couple of things. So, for those who are new here, I started this podcast series in April 2023 with the goal of having constructive disagreements with a variety of guests. I started very timidly, choosing guests who were largely aligned with me politically and philosophically, and who only diverged on very specific and nuanced questions. On the third conversation, I took a step further and talked to an astrologist, but he also had a background in philosophy and used similar styles of argumentation, so that made things easier. Last year, though, I realized it was time to take another leap and talk to someone really outside of my bubble. Călin Georgescu, a virtually unknown far-right candidate, won the first round of the Romanian elections after a controversial TikTok campaign, and triggered a political crisis that is still causing extreme polarization in the country. Needless to say, I didn't know anybody who voted for Georgescu in my circles, even though he got almost 23% of the votes. Sometimes I feel like some people in my bubble might even take pride in not knowing Georgescu supporters, but I don't. In fact, I find it extremely worrying. It shows that the level of segregation in society has really reached such extreme levels that it puts our democracy at risk. Sure, it's hard to interact with someone who rejects your deepest values, and not everyone will have what it takes to engage in these interactions, and that's fine. It's always legitimate to prioritize your own mental health. But we shouldn't promote this unwillingness to engage in dialogue as a virtue, and I see this happening too much in progressive circles. I'm a consequentialist at heart, but one of the core ideas of Aristotelian ethics that really stuck with me is that a virtue is always the middle ground between two vices. In this case, just as it can be unhealthy to never engage with people outside your bubble, it can also be unhealthy to over-engage to the point that you burn out and decide never to do it again. The secret is finding a level of engagement that works for you so that you can do it consistently and sustainably. For some people that will mean doing podcasts with extremists, but for others it might just mean engaging with their families a couple of times a year during holidays or similar occasions. Or maybe in some extreme cases not even that, and that's totally fine. There's this image from a vegan strategist blog post that I really like. I'll share a link to the post in the description, but the image is pretty simple. It's basically three overlapping circles: what you love, what you're good at, and what has a big impact. And at the intersection of these circles is where you find your activist sweet spot. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is, I want to encourage you to engage with people outside your ideological bubble, but only to the extent that this is healthy for you, and only you can figure out what that extent is. I want to find this idea that refusing to talk to certain people is a virtue, but I don't want to guilt trip you into doing something that isn't a good fit for you, something that's not in your activist sweet spot. There's another idea that floats around in my circles and that I want to question a bit. The idea that you shouldn't express opinions on issues you know little about. In this episode, more than ever, I engaged in a topic that I know uncomfortably little about, namely Romanian politics. Was that a mistake? Should I just not have done it? Should I instead have invited specialists and acted as a moderator? I often think about this option, and I might choose to moderate dialogues in the future, but I think there's also value in discussing topics I know little about. Although I agree that we should normalize the option of keeping an open mind and not forming an opinion about everything, I also think we all have the right to form opinions even about things we know little about. Actually, I think we do that inevitably, and it's unrealistic to expect anything else. At the end of the day, we have to make decisions, and our decisions will inevitably be based on our beliefs. I think it's legitimate, for example, to delegate to the opinion of experts when you know little about something, and that still counts as having an opinion. I'm not agnostic or neutral about the safety of COVID vaccines or the reality of climate change just because I haven't had the time to look at the research myself. I actually think that would be bad epistemics. I'm confident of these opinions exactly because they're coming from specialists who know a lot more than me, so I feel I have a solid foundation for my actions. But even when there are no experts to delegate to, opinions don't have to be final. The idea that you should only form an opinion after years of formal research is a form of black and white thinking. Having or not having an opinion doesn't have to be something binary. It's okay to hold an opinion with a higher or lower degree of confidence, and it's okay for that degree of confidence to change over time in response to new data. Rather than normalizing not having an opinion at all, I think what we really need to normalize is having weaker opinions that are provisional and not fixed. These are the kind of values that I want to promote in this podcast. Values like nuanced rather than black and white thinking, awareness of one's fallibility, openness to changing one's mind, willingness to admit mistakes without shame, and a commitment to interpreting people charitably. None of these values are new. Many of them can be traced back all the way to Socrates, who was known for his commitment to constructive dialogue, and who is often credited as the father of Western philosophy. But those values were largely forgotten, particularly in the Dark Ages, and today, even after the Enlightenment, they're still neglected. We don't learn them in schools because our educational system is outdated and authoritarian and treats pupils as containers where teachers should dump facts. If we want to learn more about critical thinking and effective communication, we have to do it on our own. I strongly recommend the books The Scout Mindset by Julia Galef and How Minds Change by David McCraney. My point is that I'm not here to promote specific facts. I'm here to promote epistemic virtues, or in other words, values that should make us all better at deliberating together and getting closer to the truth. When it comes to Romanian politics, there might be many historical figures or events that I know little about, but I still have my epistemic and moral values, and I judge different candidates or political parties based on how much they seem to be aligned with those values. To be honest, the situation is not much different with Brazilian politics or any politics. My interest in politics is very theoretical, so I tend to judge political movements based on their narratives without paying too much attention to every little corruption scandal that appears on the news. Does that make me too lenient on political parties with a history of corruption? Maybe. But we all have our biases and blind spots, so just take what I say with a grain of salt. And if you disagree with something I say, please share your thoughts in the comments. I have many false beliefs, as everybody else does, but I want to minimize that number. If you can help me do that, I'll be grateful. So, with that said, let's go back to the main topic. Today I'm going to be talking to Ștefan Mironescu. Ștefan studied cinema at the National University of Theatre and Film in Bucharest and works as a video producer. He's also a member of the Party of Young People in Romania, the main party behind Călin Georgescu. It's worth noting that this conversation was recorded over 2 months ago on the 8th of December 2024, and there have been many twists to the Georgescu story in the meantime that we're not going to cover. The main twist is, of course, that the election was annulled by the Romanian Constitutional Court, a move that's been controversial for many people across the political spectrum. Georgescu tried to revert the annulment by appealing to the European Court of Human Rights, who rejected his appeal, but the Venice Commission published a report soon after urging caution when resorting to such an extreme measure. On the 26th of February, Georgescu was detained by the police and questioned as part of an investigation covering 6 criminal charges, including anti-constitutional acts and misreporting his campaign finances. The first round of the new elections is scheduled for the 4th of May, and although we don't know who's going to be running or if Georgescu will even be allowed to run, he's still leading the race in opinion polls and prediction markets. So with no further ado, I bring you Ștefan Mironescu.
Hey, so I'm here with Ștefan Mironescu. Hi, Ștefan.
Hello. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, so as I was going to tell you, so the structure of the conversation, I mean, I don't know how much you know about this series that I started recently.
Not really, just a friend of mine told me about it, but I don't know the details.
Yeah, so I haven't published many episodes, just 3 of this series of dialogues that I'm trying to do. Basically, I'm trying to use the concepts from street epistemology, which is a movement that tries to engage people with dialogue and focus on epistemology.
What exactly means epistemology? Because I know the word, I heard about it, that's something philosophical, moral, but I don't know exactly.
Yeah. It's the branch of philosophy that deals with the nature of knowledge, or what does it mean to know anything? What can we know?
Okay.
So
what
this
is the origin of knowledge, more or less, the origin of knowledge, the base of the essence of the knowledge, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But street epistemology is this movement that focuses on engaging in dialogue, where instead of focusing on the beliefs themselves, you focus on how people reached those beliefs.
There's a guy that is asking people on the street. It's a really nice series, very short, like 1 minute. And he's asking people, "Hey, hello, sir," like rich people. "When did you first become a millionaire?" And there's very
Okay.
interesting answers, very interesting, because they say about their life and about their experience,
Yeah.
and they give business advice, life advice, and it's very short,
Yeah.
and it's quite good. It's quite good
Mhm.
series.
Yeah.
Street philosophy. It's people talking about their decisions, about their big failures, about their big successes. It's good stuff, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I use the strategy from this book. So I have a series of questions that I ask. And but in the beginning, I would like you to tell me a bit more about yourself. Like, yeah, what's your background? Or
All right.
are you originally from Bucharest?
No, absolutely not. I am from Braila. Braila is
Okay.
it's a smaller town, not that small. It's kind of a medium town, and from Romania for Romania, and it's on the Danube River and next to Galați, which is a Moldavian city. Braila is on the Muntenia region, and it's just on the border of Moldavia. So next to Galați, there's like 15 kilometers between them, and Galați is in Moldova, and Braila is in Muntenia. So actually, they're kind of like border towns between Moldova and Muntenia. So the culture is more or less a mix of Muntenia and Moldova. It's not really one or the other. It's a mix,
Hmm.
and it's a city. I was quite poor when I grew up, and quite violent, and so I grew up in a bad environment. Uh, but I grew up in a family which had a bit of money and had a bit of education, so I was a bit protected from some of that
I see.
shit.
Hmm.
So that was it. And when I was 18, I came to university, and I did 2 years of Polytechnic University, and I quit. And then I did psychology, and I did film school. So it was
Okay.
a shift for me, definitely. And I realized that I have the brains for math, but I don't want to do it. I want to do something
Hmm.
creative, do something like humanistic, and help people
Hmm.
and stuff. To live more like how you say a more. I had more like a rebel personality. So a rebel is not good to do engineering, not at all. Really, engineer and it's very strict, very rigid, and I'm not really my kind of personality at all. So
That's interesting. That ties into my the first part of the conversation. I try to find what we have in common because this is one of the strategies in this, and I want to be transparent about everything. So like I don't want to approach this in like I'm using some strategy in some Machiavellian way. So the first step is to try to find a common ground so that we don't feel like we are out group and in group. You know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, so I think that's important. And I can relate to what you said because I studied computer engineering. I mean, I didn't drop out, so I still work in IT. But as you see in my free time, I do stuff like that, try to have conversations. And I also did a master's in philosophy. I'm interested in philosophy. I wish I could dedicate more of my time to this, but unfortunately, it's not a field that pays very well. So I kind of keep my developer job and do this as a hobby.
You know what I learned about being an adult, is that whatever is your philosophy and whatever are your choices, you need to stick to the budget. The budget is the essence of adulthood. If you don't care about the budget, you're fucked big time. So the budget is
Yeah.
the essence of your freedom. If your budget is shit, you can be the smartest, the greatest, you're gonna fail. So always check the numbers, check the money, and do whatever you need to be on the floating side to be doing well. Because otherwise, if you're hungry, you don't do what you want. If you're hungry, you are weak. And if you are weak, you don't do anything good.
Hmm. But you were saying also, you said something about doing something good, right? Is that something that motivates you?
There's something good. In what sense?
You said something that you wanted to do something creative and you wanted to have an impact, or what
Oh
was
yeah,
it?
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that you know when I was growing up, I had a role model in my grandfather, and he was a very, very smart guy. He was a powerful guy. He had quite a good job. When he was like a kind of like a um, director of a company in communism. So he was a high position, but he was very humble guy. He didn't really use his power to abuse people, or he always helped people with jobs and with houses. And so I learned about from him. I learned how to be a guy that is powerful, but also gives to people and helps people all the time. So it's like I
I
have
see.
power in order to help others. A very nice lesson actually. And after he died, I was only 10, and after he died, I kind of went into a depression because my parents were not that and not that smart, and they were not that successful at all. So I had no morals at all. Then I had to figure it out by myself. And if he lived for another 6-7 years, I would be much easier for me. But when he died, I changed schools because my parents decided to change me to different schools. So I changed the whole environment, and my grandfather died. So I was in a bad place, and it was bad. It was bad for a few years. I was just isolating myself, playing video games all the time for hours and 8 hours, 10 hours, just ignoring the world and just go to school and play games. And but it did help me though, because when you isolate yourself, you observe the world from distance. You're like watching. I mean, you're not escaping for totally. You're escaping, but you're watching. So when you're watching, you're learning. So even you're not participating, you're learning. And all that learning, when you start to act, you realize that you actually learn something just by watching people and how they react and how they behave. You learn a lot just watching people. When you act before you think, you don't learn that much because you don't observe. You're just acting on your impulse. But when you observe, observe, and observe, then you analyze the whole thing so well. You've seen it 100 times before, so then you know what's going to happen. It's like in football. You know which is when you watch sports. When you know sports and you watch 100 million games, you know which pass is going to be a pass that makes a goal and which pass is not good enough to make a goal. You already know it before it strikes because you've seen it so many times before, right? That's the thing about learning and about watching. And if you don't observe, you don't notice which is a good pass, which
Yeah,
is not.
of course. You need the data to train the neural networks in your
So
brain.
it's kind of like an automatism in the brain. The brain has a automatic thinking, so it can anticipate based on what it saw before hundreds of times. The brain is a computer in many ways. And if the computer learns well, I mean, there's how you say, there is like the best processor, and then there's the medium processor and the weak processor. So if you're the best processor, then I'm going faster and better, and the weaker processor slower. We are not the same, obviously. So to say that I think equality is a bullshit because we are not equal, and that is good because we are different, and we try to be not complete, but kind of see everyone has his own place, right? So not everybody is good to be a plumber, not everybody is good to be a policeman, not everybody is good to be a fireman or a lawyer. So we have to find our own place, and it's not that I'm superior, you're inferior, but we are different, and we're not equal, different.
Yeah, I wanted to, before I jump in and ask you the next question, would be like why you support Georgescu, which this is the topic of the conversation today. I want to ask, I'm curious, why do you think that I don't support, or before the elections were canceled, I was supporting Lasconi? I don't have the right to vote. I'm not a Romanian citizen, but I was supporting her side, so to say. And why do you think that is? Do you have any guess?
He's been associated with Russia. He's been associated with the legionary movement. He's been associated with a lot of negative images. So, of course, it's logical that a lot of people will be not supporting him for that reason.
So you agree? So you agree that being associated with Russia is a bad thing, or being a legionary is a bad thing?
I do believe that is a bad thing for sure, but I don't have any, how you say, clear proof. I mean, when I'm talking clear proof, I'm talking about accounts, we're talking about money, I'm talking about emails. I want to see clear proof when he's talking with the legionnaires, when he's talking with the Russians, when he's getting money from them. I want to see
Yeah.
concrete proof that he is their man. Because what we have is rumors. What we have is some people that they are associated with those movements that are talking with him, but they don't pay him money. I don't see the proof that he's paid by them or somehow they are in a conspiracy together. I didn't see the proof of that. So
Yeah.
maybe he
I
has friends
was.
with them, but to be friends doesn't mean you're being paid for them, or doesn't mean that you are being in a plan for them, in a conspiracy. I worked for some time. I worked even with some Russians in a business, and they didn't convince me to be a Russian fan. I just went do it for money, right? So they're just like every other country. They just do business.
Sure, but in this case, I mean, I don't know yet that how clear and concrete is the source of his funding. But in the case of the legionary movement, it's a matter of ideological alignment. It's not so much a matter of money.
I do agree. However, there is a nuance to this, and I studied a lot the history of World War II and the history of the 30s. So I really fond of history. And what I can say about the legionary movement, that the ideology in itself is not that evil, but the
Mhm.
facts of the crimes are. So, but in the beginning of the movement, there hasn't been much. So this movement started somewhere in the 20s. And
Hmm.
for the beginning of it, it was a movement about being a nationalist, being loving your country, of being, how you say, they were building
Hmm.
bridges, they were helping people build houses, they were doing a lot of voluntary work for free, they were helping a
Hmm.
lot of people to build houses and bridges, and they were doing a lot of community work for free. And this what
Sure.
this why the people liked them, because they were always helping. So the ideology in
Sure.
itself was about God, it was about being religious, it was being helping the community, about respecting the king and the monarchy. Uh,
Yeah,
it was
but
not that
there's
bad,
always
but
this
then
element.
when they started to do political assassination, that's when all went to shit, because they started to do crimes, and that's when
Yeah.
the whole thing collapsed. From my
But it's
opinion.
not only a matter of political assassinations, right? I mean, it's like the fascist movement, or in Germany, or in Italy. It's a nationalism, is a kind of nationalism that finds a scapegoat for the problem, that excludes certain communities, that questions the idea that um,
The legionary
that
movement was not so
that
much
defines
anti-Semitic
a
as the
hierarchy.
Nazis. So the legionary movement was not as anti-Semitic as were the Nazis. It was a bit less in my knowledge of
A
history.
bit less.
A bit less.
Essentially, they
It
side.
was a bit anti-Semitic for sure, maybe even medium anti-Semitic, but not we're not doing the Holocaust for sure, not on the level as Nazi Germany, not on that level, oh, for sure. But they were doing crimes against Jews.
Let me just ask you, what do you think about this movement today? And do you support the legionary movement?
No, absolutely not. But I did study their history, so I think there's a lot of nuance, and all these movements, these nationality movements, they started not so bad, and then they went for worse in the years to come. So in the beginning, it was a bit of idealism, it was a bit of fanatical thing.
Yeah, but it was like eventually they perpetrated biggest genocide in European history. Like,
And the Nazis, for sure,
it's
they
very
did it. They
serious
did
stuff.
several
Yeah.
crimes. And the
So,
legionnaires as well. But there's also, if you look at the history, the legionnaires did the worst crimes after Codreanu was dead already. So after he
mhm,
died, they did the worst crimes. When there was the second leader, Sima,
sure.
and the second leader, they did the worst crimes. And so if you look at Codreanu, the first leader, he did less crimes than the second leader, which did a lot of crimes, also against the Jews.
But
So
aren't you afraid that fascism could rise again and actually lead to violence?
I don't
Because
think so.
fascism is fundamentally undemocratic. It's
Absolutely not.
fundamentally about tradition, exclusion, and the definition
Absolutely.
of a
It's a
narrow
lot of
group.
hate in that. It's a lot of hate in that. And I don't agree
Okay.
with that. But I do
Hmm.
believe that this movement, legionary movement, as well as the Nazi movement and as the fascist, I think it's something
Hmm.
which is outdated. It's outdated, and
Hmm.
I don't think it's something that in 2024 it's actual. It's something that belongs to the past, and I don't think that it
Okay.
should be brought up as something to believe in.
So even if they have the same discourse as the Nazis, even if they had the same discourse and it's kind of conservative and nationalistic, and you still think it's not going to lead to violence.
For example, if you're supporting Trump, I don't think Trump is a Nazi or a fascist. I think Trump is a bit extreme, but he's still democratic somehow. I don't think he's really pushing it at that level to be a fascist. And I would vote for Trump if I were in America. And I don't think he's a fascist at all. He is a bit extreme, but a bit more his personality is extreme more than his actions, really.
So what is it then that you do support about Georgescu? What is it, yeah, that attracts you to his
Um,
ideology?
to be honest, uh, my vote is more against the USR party than to be for Georgescu. So if there was another
Okay.
candidate against Lasconi, I would vote the other candidate against Lasconi. So my vote is actually more against Lasconi than actually for Georgescu. So I'm not a big fan of him.
Would you have voted for Ciolacu against Lasconi?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So how come you hate her so much?
Not to choose anybody else. I guess I don't like USR because they did a lot of shit during the pandemic against us. They were very strict and
During the pandemic.
And I
Okay.
think during the pandemic, there was a huge division because the vaccinated people were one group, the unvaccinated another group, and the USR party, they really insult us a lot and they put a lot of restrictions. If people lost their jobs, they were blackmailed to do the vaccine or lose the job. And that was something that was really undemocratic, really the
Yeah. Were
dictatorship.
you Are you vaccinated or not?
Absolutely not, no, clearly not.
Okay. So you're against the vaccine. So that's I see. That's a big issue for you. Who did you vote for, if I may ask, in the first round of the elections this year?
I voted for George Simeon for our.
For Simeon Aur.
I think he's a more medium. He's not such an extremist. He's more like a medium nationalist, like a nationalist which is more presentable, so to speak.
Hmm. And do you consider yourself a nationalist?
Yes, I do.
And what does that mean to you?
Um, I believe that we should keep our national identity, our traditions, our religion, and those should be fundamental values.
But they should be at the level of the state. The state should enforce Christian values on society.
Yes, I think the state should impose Christian values on society. Yes.
And don't you think, what about the Romanians who are not Orthodox? Maybe they are Catholics. Or what about the Hungarians? Or about atheists? Or about the homosexual community, LGBT?
I don't think they should be punished in any way. I just think that the official religion should be Orthodox, but then, of course, you can choose whatever. Because right now, the law says that the Constitution says we are an Orthodox country, but it doesn't impose any restrictions on other religions.
Yeah, it does. It says it's a secular state where the Orthodox religion plays an important cultural role.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
think right now
they.
it's the way it should be. I think it's a moderate way to do it, and I think this moderate way is the best. So keep the religion in the state law, but keep it like a moderate level, not push it too much on people.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. What do you think are the most pressing problems in Romania right now?
Money, poverty, economics.
Poverty.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, I agree, actually. That's interesting.
Unfortunately, it's the same like in
And
the
do you
90s.
think, but it's funny because I don't hear Simeon or Aur or Georgescu or these people. I don't hear any of them, any of the nationalists, the sovereigntists, talking so much about poverty. They talk instead about tradition and Christianity and being against the LGBT, protecting Romania from the LGBT values of the West or things like that. Why do
Yeah,
you think they do? Why don't do you think they are the ones who are most prepared to tackle the problem of poverty in Romania?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think not. I think just
Hmm.
that the current parties are very corrupt, and so they
Hmm.
are a different option. They're something new, and so I'm willing to try it out, even though I don't really trust them fully. That's for sure.
I see. What about small progressive parties like SENS or Reper or even Volt, which is even smaller? I don't know if you've heard of them.
I'm leaning to the right, so they are leftists. I'm not going to vote for
Hmm.
them.
I see. In what sense do you identify as right? Because you're nationalistic and
Conservative. I'm
you
just
were Christian.
conservative. I'm caring about tradition, about family,
Hmm.
about religion.
Yeah. But what
That's
about freedom? What about freedom?
well, I do believe in freedom. I'm an
What about
artist,
that?
so I do believe in freedom. But I do believe that certain values need to be taught in school, need to be taught by the state, because you need to have a ground. And even if you rebel against them, you need at least to have that base, even if you rebel against it. But still, you have that base. That's my opinion. You should have a base of traditional education, and then you can even rebel against it, but at least you have that fundamental education taught to you, right?
Hmm. I see. And you think this, how do you think this is going to impact Romania positively? So you think, because right now there is already, for example, religion in schools.
Yes, but I
And
didn't go to school. It was 1 hour per week. It was really nothing that impactful. It was just some nice lady that was talking about Jesus Christ, and it was nothing really impactful at all.
do you think there should be more? Can you give me an example of something concrete, of a measure that you would think is good, like introducing more religion in schools, or what would it be?
Not really. I do believe that what is nice and what I like is actually what the Catholic Church is doing. They're doing a lot of programs for people. They're doing a lot of like voluntary work and helping poor people and old people, and they're helping to people to become helpful to the community and give to the poor and be humble and kind and whatever. So they're teaching nice moral values and social values to help society. So I think the Catholic Church actually is doing a much better job than the Orthodox Church. In
Yeah, but what if there was a program of just social work or of just doing good, a secular program that's not associated with any specific church?
That would be fun as well. I am not that much into like supporting religion fully, but I do believe that there's a danger because a lot of the leftist parties they are attacking religion massively. So I don't like that. When I see them insulting the church, when I see them insulting the patriarch, when I see them making films about how bad is the church, And I think that's very dangerous because the church is a very old institution. It's part of our culture, and I think it should be there. I don't really love it, but I think it should be a part of our society still. And when I see them insulting it, I think that's very dangerous because it's the same like with the LGBT. It's the same, just in a different direction. So, like the very extreme nationalists, they insult LGBT. The same extreme leftists, they insult the church. It's the same bad thing. It's creating hatred, it's creating division, and I don't think it's very dangerous. You know.
But it's interesting because, me being closer to the leftist, yeah, I'm me being somehow very present in leftist circles, or me being an atheist, or explicitly, I am actually a member in the secularist organization in Romania, or globally, like in Brazil, also I'm also involved. And that's one of the things we fight for explicitly, separation between church and state. What we believe, and I wonder what you think about that, is that we should have a society where every religion, every person has the freedom to practice whatever the religion they want, and no religion should have more power than another. Like the state should stay out of it, basically, and they should just provide an environment where any religion can flourish or any community can flourish. And depending on people's ideological alignments, on their beliefs, they will choose one religion or no religion at all. And we should all have this freedom. You don't think that's a good thing?
In theory, it is a good thing. In practice, it may be dangerous because the thing is, if you're having a lot of people which are very extreme leftists and they are attacking the church on a regular basis, a lot of people will be manipulated to hate the church as well. So in time, the church will become completely irrelevant and be thrown away, and everybody will become an atheist. That's for sure.
And you think that's a bad thing if everybody becomes an atheist?
Yes, absolutely. It's a bad thing for sure. I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God. Of course, it's a bad thing. For me, it's a bad thing.
I see. But what about, for example, in Scandinavia, or there are European countries where people have lost religion to a high degree, or even, I don't know, Czech Republic, and most people are atheists. They're not necessarily doing bad.
I wouldn't live there. I wouldn't live there. Not at
You
all.
wouldn't live there.
For me, it's very important to have a country which is respecting spirituality and religion.
Hmm. But do you think that religion is really at risk? I mean, more like Romania is one of the most religious countries in Europe, and
Yes.
I mean, it's not like this is gonna affect your life if religion loses power. You will still have your community, you will still have the freedom to go to church, but it somehow bothers you that for example, right now, if I'm an atheist and I had a child in school, do you think it's okay for me to yeah, right now they would be able to not attend religion.
Yes, but what I believe in is, and this is something which is political, is not about religion. So, because I've been studying politics as well, I think it's a very interesting domain, it's a very fascinating domain. There has to be a balance of power. So what I do believe is the atheists and the spiritual people should have a sort of balance, 50-50 power. So no one should be dominant. I do believe that always when there's a balance of power, everybody's happy. So the power should not be a huge imbalance. So if the atheists are 80% and the religious are 20%, there will be an imbalance. If the religious are 80% and the atheists are 20, it will be an imbalance of power. It should be like 50-50, 54, 55 to 45, or maybe 60 to 40. There has to be a balance of power always. If there's just one has always when one has more power, too much power, it will be abusive. Whoever is much power. That is the rule of politics.
Let me ask you something. So you think that Romania is slowly losing its Christian values, you would say, or
No, I don't
becoming
think that. I
influenced?
I think what's happening is we're becoming two separate countries. One is traditionalist and one is progressive, and they are hating each other, which is bad. Which is bad. I don't like that.
I agree. It's polarization.
It's a big polarization. It's a big polarization, and I think it was very much influenced by the pandemic and by the separation between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. I think that was the starting point of the growing polarization.
That's yeah, that's definitely a tough topic. Yeah, let me ask. So you think religion is good for Romania, and you think preserving certain traditional values are a positive things?
Yeah, because I was growing up doing a religious 1 hour per week in religion, and my grandma religious, and she was taking me to church and stuff, but I didn't feel that I was being forced to do it. I felt a lot of freedom. I could just do anything I wanted. Nobody was forcing me to believe.
Yeah, but you have a traditional lifestyle, right? I mean, you're not gay, for example, or
No,
you're
no,
not polyamorous or non-monogamous,
no,
or
no.
yeah, exactly.
I have a
I
conservative lifestyle, that's for sure.
Yes, I don't have a conservative lifestyle, right? So I would be personally impacted by certain things like that. So yeah, and some friends of mine.
As I said, for me, it's a balance of power. So if the balance of between the two sides is good enough, I mean, it's not more than 60-40, then of course they can coexist in harmony, in a balance. But if one has the full power, it will abuse for sure. Either side will abuse
Mhm,
if they have the full power.
mhm.
It's my opinion. Never one side has to have the full power.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think that a decrease in religious values or the conservatives in Romania would lead to a worse society in terms of in terms of the well-being? You think
Why?
the well-being
Why
of
do you think?
Romanians would decrease?
No, no, it's not that. I'm not talking about money or well-being.
No, no,
I'm
no,
just
the
talking about
well-being in general, their mental health, everything.
conservative people like me will be marginalized if it would be an atheist society, for sure, for sure. That's for sure. I believe that we will be pushed away from from everything important in the society. We will be like marginalized, like losers.
Yeah, but isn't it the situations that we atheists are in right now, like or the homosexuals, like
Yeah.
the gay LGBT community, they are marginalized right now by a religious conservative majority.
That's correct, and there's something even more like ridiculous moments when there is the gay parade in Cala Victoriei, and they do the gay parade, and then Gigi Becali, this millionaire, comes with priests, and they say when they are throwing holy water to take the sins away because the gays have been here, and they put sins on the street. It's crazy, of course. It's absolutely crazy. They put sins on the street. What the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
So polarization is a big polarization.
But don't you see that? I mean, it's an interesting situation because basically it sounds to me that you are afraid that you're gonna be in the position where atheists and the LGBT community is now already. So they are excluded. They are afraid of coming out. They are, I don't know, being beaten by their parents or kicked out of the house. And you think, and you're afraid that in the future, where everybody becomes atheist or LGBT friendly, then maybe the conservative Christians will be mocked or somehow.
Yeah, I do believe that, but I do believe also that the gay community and the atheists are not as abused or marginalized as they were like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I think they have
I
gained
agree.
more power, a lot more rights.
But don't you think so? And do you think that was a good thing?
It's a good thing, yes. There has to be a balance. There has to be a balance, for sure. It's a good thing.
But now, so that's the tricky thing because the way I see it, and I think if you asked anyone in the LGBT community on any leftist, we would say we don't want more power. We don't want to oppress the Christians. We don't want the religion to disappear. We just want to be left alone. We just want to be tolerated, to live in peace in society. You want to go to church, you go to church. I don't care. Just let me go to the gay club.
I think if you can convince the 10% of your people which are aggressive and insulting us, if you can convince them to slow down a bit, that would help a lot for communication because there are people from that community which are insulting Christians for sure, and they are trying to be aggressive and like the same extreme nationalists, the same they are doing. These 10% of your side, 10% of our side, they are creating the problem because those extremists they are creating this conflict actually.
Yeah. But I think, I mean, for me, it's hard. I think to some extent it's the responsibility of us moderates to just ignore to some extent these people because at the end of the day, we can't.
Exactly. For example, look at me. I was posting something about. Let me give you one concrete example. I was posting something about Georgescu, which was not even fanatical, just saying that I'd vote him or something. And some guy told me that because he supports God, and then he said some guy write me personally on publicly that religion and religious people have no place in modern society, and you should go to them back to the Middle Ages and lose everything you have and crash and burn and stuff like that. He was completely attacking.
Wow.
And that's something which is bad. I mean, what the fuck? You're just really attacking me a lot
Yeah.
for nothing. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
posted
the
my
tricky
opinion. I didn't insult anybody.
yeah. The tricky thing about the internet, and yeah, it's always possible to cherry pick some extreme cases. Like we can't. It's a movement. It's an organic thing. It's not like nobody has control over what everybody says.
Even with look at this. I posted something. I posted a post which I was being ironic towards Lasconi, and some guy was posting that, yeah, because she's a lesbian bitch. And I don't accept that kind of commentary. I mean, I don't like her, but I don't accept that you insult her on my page. But that, I mean, some guy just profit from my post to insult her for free, and I don't like that. So I don't agree either side to be extremist, to just insult people for nothing. That's not the way to do it. I can make an irony, say something ironic, but I'm not going to insult her and be aggressive for nothing. It's ridiculous. And so I'm completely against this kind of attack for nothing. Just calling names and putting labels and being aggressive. It's not going to help anybody, neither side. And I think we should slow down on the aggression, on the hatred, and on the labels. Because they are labels put by either side. They are putting labels on the others. They're calling them legionnaires and extremists. The other are calling them gays and pussies and whatever. So every side,
Yeah.
each side has their extremists, and those 10% extremists are creating the whole conflict. They are putting gas on the fire. They're putting gas on the fire all the time. And so the moderates also they join a bit because they're a bit provoked by this whole tension, by those 10% of either side, which are very, very pushy.
I still feel the need to go back to something concrete because I feel that in this whole period, this whole political crisis in Romania, we're always talking grand narratives and the traditional values, but I can never find something concrete. Like, what is there a specific policy that you expect a party like ours to implement that you support?
Yes. More taxation on foreign companies like corporations. More support for small Romanian companies. Yes. More support for Romanian owners. Yes, absolutely.
So this is the how the nationalism
Yeah.
plays in. I
Yeah.
see. And what do you think about some causes that I would say, for example, civil partnership for same-sex couples? That's something that leftist parties do promote, like SENS, for example. What do you think about? Because they're not saying anything against religion. If you look at their program or against traditional values.
I do agree with that. As long as it's not called a marriage, which is related to religion somehow, I think a civil partnership is okay. It's not a problem. It should be
I
that
see.
actually,
Okay.
because
That's
you need
interesting.
to have benefits, right? So you need to have like to rent a house, to buy a house. You need if you have a
Yeah.
partner, you have rights, you have more money. So it's practical.
Okay.
So in a practical sense, I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
hmm And what do you think about, for example, sexual education in schools?
I think it's good, but I don't think that they should be talking about gay sex to young children, like to like before
hmm
14. I think they should be ignoring that, and maybe between 14 or 16 to 18, maybe they should talk about openly about all of it, because I think I'm not sure about how kids develop by age, but I do believe when they're very young, they shouldn't be exposed to something which is a bit, how you say, different. They should be taught like they were always taught in traditional way, and then when they are old enough, then they'll be shown everything else, right? So a bit of protecting them when they are very young. That's how I see it. Because you don't know. Because what can happen is like this. For example, one girl, one guy, or one girl, they don't really have confidence and they are a bit traumatized or something, and then they are taught in school that it's okay to have sex with anybody you want, or boy or girl, whatever, and they get drunk or they do drugs or something, and they have sex with the same sex, and then they wake up the next day and they say, "Wait a minute, but I feel bad. I didn't want this because I don't feel I'm actually gay. I think I just did it on impulse because somewhere in my mind the education said, 'Come on, everything's okay, just do it.' There's no limit." So maybe I do believe that some limit needs to be had, unless until you are mature enough to know for sure what your choice is.
But you do know, for example, that teenage pregnancy in Romania Romania has the highest race, is the highest rate in Europe, or maybe second to Bulgaria or something. And one of the things that is known to improve this, like factually, the data shows that sex education in school helps diminish that, helps decrease the rate of teenage pregnancy.
I do believe that, but I think it should focus on preventing unprotected sex, STVs,
Yes.
STBs, disease, sexually transmitted disease, unwanted pregnancy. It should focus on that and not on diversity of sexual partners. It should focus on
Yeah.
preventing trouble, really.
I see. And you don't think any, and you don't trust any leftist party in Romania that if they manage to push for sex education, that it would be done in a way that's somehow friendly enough to the conservatives.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I think that in a broader coalition, they would be maybe useful, but if they'll be just leftists, I wouldn't trust them
Yeah.
at all because they would create a power circle.
Yeah, but you did it like, but right now, I mean, SENS didn't even make it to parliament, so they're
Unfortunately for them, they seem to be making it, but they finally they didn't. So
yeah, I
a
see.
lot of people were posting. I saw there was a big kind of enthusiasm about it, but they
Hmm.
and then bots did it, which are nationalist extremists, and they did it.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm curious when you say you want things to be better. I'm curious what that means to you. Because for me, when I say that I want things to be better in Romania, I mean that basically I want people to have better lives, happier lives, more well-being, less suffering. Do you agree with this way of looking at things?
Absolutely, that's true.
And you think that by voting for traditionalist parties, you are increasing the chances that the well-being will be maximized in Romania.
I'm not even sure, but I'm just voting against what I already know is bad, which are the old parties. So it's kind of a negative vote.
Well, okay, but so you think that if Husare won, s- suffering would increase in Romania
Yeah,
and we
I
would
do
have
think that.
less
Absolutely.
well-being.
For me, for my
Okay.
kind of people, for sure, they will increase. Yes.
But what in day to day, how would that impact you? Like, what kind of suffering?
I saw what they did to me in the pandemic, the restrictions and the insults they did,
Mhm.
and the pushing us
I
into the
see.
corner of society. They would do it again for sure. Absolutely.
I
If
see.
we don't share their
So a lot
values,
of
they would just marginalize us for sure.
a lot of it goes back to the pandemic and to how,
Absolutely. Everything
yeah.
started when everything started there. Yeah.
Mhm. It's very tricky because I was one of my fears regarding this, having this conversation, choosing this topic, is that it's so broad that I didn't know in which direction it would
But a
push.
lot of people,
Usually, I.
which I talk to, also I also have some friends in Usere, and I talk with them, and they also agree that the polarization started in the pandemic. They agree with this opinion. The polarization started there.
What do you think they should have done in the pandemic?
They should have been more lenient towards people, explain more, be more accepting of the fact that some people just are afraid to do the vaccine or they just don't trust it. They need more time to
Hmm.
think about it. Don't push people. They were
Hmm.
pushing people. They were really pushing us a
I
lot.
see the pushing was very aggressive.
We felt
Hmm.
blackmailed, yes. And some people even lost
I
their
see.
job. They're blackmailed.
Hmm.
And that was a really dictatorship. You are losing your job if you don't do the vaccine. It's unprecedented, really.
It's very tricky because I agree that I think it's a crisis of trust.
Yes.
I think the ruling class should earn the trust of the
Yeah.
ruled. It is part of the social contract of democracy.
Yes.
But at the same time, it was it was a crisis, an unprecedented crisis. And we did find the vaccine, and we did have the knowledge, the best science showing that this is important, and there is human, and we want to prevent literally people from dying. And it was a is a trade-off, right? Like, okay, how lenient can you be? Because there will be people dying because of their lenience. But then, of course, if you go too hardcore, then you create a movement of people who are frustrated that's so big that it bites you in the ass a couple of years later, like it's happening now.
Yes.
But it's very hard to know. Like, it's very hard to know. And I think it can be I see it as an honest mistake. I, I mean, I don't even know to what, even back then,
You agree that's a mistake, right? It is a mistake, even if it's an honest mistake.
it's, I agree only to the extent that it's biting them in the ass now. Before that, I did think like, okay, if people don't get vaccinated, more people will die. We need herd immunity. We have all the data. We know how these things work. So let's get people vaccinated, because if we get people vaccinated, fewer people will die. We want to protect people. And if people don't want to vaccinate, we will do everything we can to sort of push them to do it. I found that legitimate back then. Now that I see the extent to which people are so frustrated, I realize that maybe it shouldn't have been. Maybe they should have been somehow, yeah, more lenient, like you said. There should be a process, like a program of education. It should be maybe based less on punishment and more on rewards.
Yeah.
There's a positive reinforcement. So yeah,
If
sure,
you
I
get
do
the
see
vaccine, you get
ways
money,
in
for
which,
example. If you get money or get something to benefit.
yeah, exactly.
Reward is always better than punishment, really. Reward is always better.
Yeah. But I still think that in spite of these mistakes, I still think that they are the parties, the mainstream parties, or USR, for example, is more science oriented. So they will do what the academics say and what the scientists say, what the health community has to
Also,
say, and they will. And the traditionalists and they tend to ignore science or actively reject science, which I find deeply problematic. And I think this can cause a lot of harm and literally cause deaths. People died in the pandemic. Like my ex-girlfriend, her grandma died. She
yeah.
didn't want to get the vaccine and she died. She could have survived, but because of ignorance and because of all the conspiracy theories going around, she was scared. She didn't take the vaccine and she died. So this is happening, like, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, I don't know how to stop it because yeah, people, you can't just convince people overnight.
But you know the problem with what you're saying, which I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree with
Mhm,
your side of the story. But if I tell you our
mhm,
side of the story, I'm talking about people that didn't do the vaccine. There were quite a lot of people who didn't do it, and also doctors. I
mhm.
tens of doctors who refused to make the vaccine. He studied medicine. He's a doctor. Why does he refuse? If it's legitimate,
Mhm.
why do so many doctors refuse to take it?
Uh, I think you can always cherry pick. There is a large enough population of doctors in Romania. You will always find the ones that are following the fringe ideas. But still, science is about consensus, and the consensus was overwhelming that the vaccines are
What
safe,
if
and
the
still is.
consensus? What if the consensus, like the nationalists say, and I tend to agree. What if the consensus is based on money? Is based on big pharma interest to sell? What if the consensus is about money, not about science? It's about money.
I agree. I very much do agree that money plays too big of a role in our democracies.
I think the
I
scientists are bought a lot of money by selling product.
Yeah, I mean these crises have existed through science, like big tobacco, for example. There were papers saying that cigarettes are not so bad, but eventually this is the process of science, right? Like it's a process where it's imperfect, and we know that. But that's why it works, because it's constantly improving on itself. Because science at any given point knows that it's wrong about many things, they never stop trying to improve because they know that I'm always wrong about something. So let me see how I can learn more and fix some of these mistakes, and then I'll make new mistakes and fix those, and that's how we make progress. But and in the case of the pandemic, I mean, sure, big pharma, you can again, I agree that money plays too big a role in our democracies and in science and everything, but I don't think it's enough to justify this level of skepticism.
Maybe
At
not,
least
but
that was.
I think it's maybe a crisis of trust generally in political figures, in economic leaders, in political leaders. I think that's a big crisis of,
Yeah, for sure.
and there should be something done about this trust because the people are legitimate in distrusting because they are becoming poor by inflation. They are becoming they are not able to buy a house. They are not able to afford even social, how you say, health insurance or the benefits or so because of the economics. People are suffering. They are poor. They are struggling. And when you are struggling, really, you don't know what to think because you feel betrayed.
Mhm.
You're working hard, but you're not doing well at all, and you see people
Yeah,
doing
for
very well
sure.
around you because now there's a big
Yeah.
discrepancy, right? So a lot of people are doing very well,
Mhm.
and you're doing like shit,
Yeah.
and you feel humiliated somehow.
hmm But it's interesting because, for me, this is one reason why I sympathize with parties like SENS. They have social housing, for example, is one of the top 10 priorities, which is a very big issue in Romania. Like people are losing their houses. Like I volunteered for an organization here in Bucharest a couple of times where we help people on the streets. In the winter, there are people like freezing on the streets. In Romania, we don't have data on this, but it's shocking. I mean, I was so shocked that I think people die on the streets, and we have such a big problem of transparency and data in Romania that I think we don't even hear about. We don't know, but they are there. They exist.
I'll tell you something very shocking. A psychologist told me he was a guy, he was like in his 50s. He was quite a famous psychologist and he was always working for organizations that were helping the homeless. So he had a lot of experience with hundreds and hundreds of homeless people. And he told me something quite shocking. He told me that there are certain people, like psychopaths, like people that are willing to kill for fun, and they target homeless people because they know the police is not to ignore them because they consider them to be nobodies. And so if I want to kill somebody, I would choose a homeless person. I'll just kill him and throw him in the river, and the police will say it's just a homeless guy. He died. Who knows? They don't
Yeah, we
investigate.
also
It's
had some.
terrible. It's terrible. It's like they are not seconds. They are not even second-rate citizens. They are like tenth-rate citizens. They are nobodies.
Yeah.
Society that accept that they got murdered. Really,
Yeah,
it's
but another, I mean, this again, this for me, it makes me sympathize with a party like Sense that brings up, yeah, social housing as a priority, or even taxation of wealth. They are the only party that I know that explicitly talks about taxing wealth to minimize social inequality.
okay.
So don't aren't these issues somehow more important than, I
I
don't
think
know.
they're relevant issues, but maybe I haven't even really listened to their message at all. They didn't really get to me because I wasn't exposed to their message. I don't really know anything about stance. I
Yeah.
just know they exist and they're leftists, but I don't know their ideology at all. So maybe they didn't do enough promotion. I don't even get access to those ideas at all.
Or not in the right circles for sure. This is it's what you said. It's the polarization there.
Was not exposed to their ideology at all. I don't know what they're doing at all.
Mhm.
Just they are left. So probably because of polarization, they're targeting certain people and not me because I'm not a leftist. So they are targeting the specific of their own group, of their own sympathizers, right? So
Mhm.
probably they were paying for showing people that are already sympathizing for the left and not people who are on the right spectrum, right?
Yeah,
So
they are very new party, so yeah, I
exactly.
don't know exactly how
I
they
thought
are
we were gonna
doing
make
this.
10% actually, and
Mhm.
I was surprised they didn't.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question because I think one of the important aspects of this methodology that I try and imply here is to try to emphasize how things are not black and white, right?
Not at all, not at all.
We shouldn't be. Certain of many things.
Yeah.
So, how confident are you, if you could put a number on it, that a victory by our or a conservative party or Georgescu, that a victory by them would be a good thing for Romania, that it would, yeah, minimize suffering or maximize well-being?
I'm not even sure about that, but in politics, it's always about the alternance of power. So I think 4 years by the nationalists for sure would create a different direction. And then if it's bad, then we would change it again after 4 years. It's my opinion. It's always good to have a fresh air. It's always good to have a new direction. That's my opinion.
So you're not concerned, for example, you're concerned with Romania being more aligned towards Russia, for example.
Not at all.
You
Absolutely
don't think that's a big problem?
no. I don't
No,
think
you
it
think.
has any interest in Romania whatsoever. And I study a lot the history of Russia. Russia has certain countries which is very interested in. Ukraine is one of them, and the Republic of Moldova, and Romania is really not on their top priority list at all. I don't think they're investing a lot of resources.
But don't you think they are trying to include as many countries as possible in their sphere of influence? I mean, even in Hungary, they have somehow Orban is
I
somehow.
always say when you're talking politics, talking power, always look at the economics. The economy of Russia is shit. They don't have the money to do.
Yeah.
They don't have the money. They are
No,
shit. Really. They
they
are
have money. They have money to be in war with Ukraine for years now. For over 2 years, they've been
not
at war,
winning.
so they do have money.
They are not winning that great at all. They are struggling a lot.
No. But would you agree? Because this is also pretty much established knowledge at this point that they are trying to destabilize European countries through misinformation campaigns and cyber warfare. And do you agree that this is happening, or you think it's a lie by Western media?
I do believe it's happening, but I also believe another thing. I believe China is
Mhm.
doing the same. And also, I do
Okay.
believe the United States is doing the same. United States wants to
Hmm.
divide Europe because United States wants to be the king. And so a divided Europe is much useful to United States than a united Europe. So I do believe United States
But
is doing the
Europe,
same thing, one way or
are you
another.
sure? I don't know because I mean Europe are still allies of the US. I mean they're still in
Yes,
NATO,
but
so they need
you
to
know,
collaborate.
sometimes in life you need a weak ally better than a strong ally. Really. A weak ally
Hmm.
is more subservient, really, than a strong ally.
Hmm.
That's my opinion. So I do believe a weaker EU is a better ally for United States than a stronger EU
Hmm.
because they don't put so many conditions. Because if you are weak, you just accept the boss what he says, right?
Hmm.
So I think
So
United
you don't.
States wants a weaker Europe.
So so you're not so sure basically about which candidate would be the best for Romania. You think
No.
you're basically 50-50.
Yeah, I'm not a strong supporter of nationalists. I just want a change, and I do believe they are the only option which is different. I'm not like a huge fan of our. I think our is making a lot of mistakes as well. They are not a great. They don't have many leaders either. And Leon is this guy, not great.
So you think that the current situation is so bad that there is no such thing as a change for the worse? There couldn't be.
No,
No matter who won, as long as they're different,
yeah, I
it's
do
gonna be
believe
better.
sure, yes. Unless they are openly Nazi, which our isn't. It's nationalist, but it's not open.
Okay, so you would have a limit. If they become openly Nazi, then you wouldn't vote
Would
for
not
them.
accept that. I think it's unrealistic and not create isolation for us, every country. So
I see.
it would be an isolation. Of course, nobody would accept that.
Hmm.
Extreme, complete extremist. No, no, that would be a
Yeah.
mistake. If there was a completely extremist party, I would not vote for them for sure. Obviously,
Okay. There was, I think, maybe this year or last year, recently, there was some law that passed in Bulgaria against LGBT propaganda, which is very much a Russian type law. What do you think if something happened like this in Romania? This is like I told you, I like to think in concrete terms. So I was trying to think, okay, what could happen concretely that would scare me? And this is an example of something that it would generally make me worried of whether I should even stay.
I think it's a mistake. Law is a mistake because it's creating division, it's creating tension, and it's polarizing
Okay.
society. So I think it's a mistake. I think that
Hmm.
uh, moderation is always a better answer, and negotiation and trying to create a solution which is acceptable at least somewhat by both sides. You know,
Hmm. I
I don't
see.
think that pushing somebody to the corner. Always they say like this: if you push somebody to the corner, they will become a beast because they have to protect themselves.
Hmm.
Somebody in
I
the
see.
always try to create a sort of deal. Even somebody feels a bit he's losing, but he's still accepting some sort of a deal. So not push somebody in the corner and just put the fist in his mouth. It's not going to work like that. Not at all.
So you think a change in Romania right now is so important that yeah, uh, you don't have a very high bar. Like any change would probably do some good.
For me, I mean, very realistic talking. I don't think the nationalists will have enough votes to lead. And
Mhm.
I do believe that they have a lot of percentage in parliament. It will create a power balance, which is good. So even the same
Mhm.
parties will be in power. Strong opposition will be a good thing. So I believe that the nationalists will be opposition, not be leading. That's for sure.
Okay. And is there anything that would change your mind? So not right now you think that a change is so urgent that even yeah, the conservatives, if they would be in power, there would be a change for the better. Is there anything that would make you change your mind? Perhaps something that they would say if they said something.
I'm waiting for moderate parties, new moderate parties, on the left a bit,
Okay.
the right a bit. I'm waiting for centrist moderate parties to come with new faces, new leaders, and I would vote for them for sure. But they are not coming yet. I don't see them. Sense is not
Okay.
moderate. Sense is leaning heavily towards the left. I need somebody which is more centrist. I'm really a
But
SENS.
why? What makes you say that SENS is so leftist?
At least what's what I heard. I have to study more. I'm not really reading their whole ideology.
Hmm. And when you say leftist, what? Because it's very interesting nowadays. I don't even know what left means anymore because for different people it means completely different things. For some people it means they are not friendly enough towards business. So what does left mean to you?
So the thing is, in Romania, since the communists were here, that was a long time ago. I haven't seen really such a danger from the left. But then, if you look at the United States and you look what the Democrat Party has become and the woke movement and all of that cancel culture, that is something which is worrying me. And I'm seeing the attacks on Trump. It was terrible. The press attacked him like he was the worst criminal in the world, like he was a rapist, like he was a criminal, and still the people vote for him. They won. I mean, it's obvious that the people believe he is not a bad guy. They trust him. So there is a contradiction there.
But
Is he a criminal or is he a good guy?
it's yeah, I mean it's very tricky because I mean I agree that we should try to not polarize ourselves so much, but it's also true that leaders in the past with similar discourse have come to power and have dismantled all the democratic institutions, became dictators, initiated genocides. This has happened. This the rise of fascism looked pretty much like this looks. I recently read this book.
However,
Yes, please go
Trump
on.
was in power for 4 years
Mhm.
and that didn't happen. So
Yeah,
why
yeah,
should it happen now?
because the US there are strong institutions in the US. I hope these institutions, these democratic institutions will survive another term Trump. But I'm not so sure because it's possible to, for example, like Victor Orban in Hungary, right?
What is worrying about the left in the United States is that the candidates they propose are extremely weak. I mean, Joe Biden is a terrible candidate, and Kamala Harris is not much better. And Hillary Clinton was not a good candidate as well. So why
Depends
are
on
they
what you mean.
proposing? Why are they proposing such weak candidates? Why? I don't understand the reason behind that. I am sure that in that party there are much competent people they are not choosing. Why?
What, but is there a subtext to your comment? Because I mean, you also consume media, right? Your
Yes,
source, you also have your sources. So
absolutely.
when you say that they are weak candidates, that there is a bias there. I don't necessarily think Kamala was such a bad weak candidate. I mean, it turned out to be this way.
But Joe Biden was a bad candidate, that's for sure. I mean, you have to agree that Joe Biden is a weak candidate.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if they know these things are not easy. I mean, I don't know how they should choose a better candidate. I have my ideas because I have my biases. I would say they should pick Bernie because I love Bernie and because I think fighting social inequality is a big priority. But not everybody thinks like that.
For example, let me tell you my opinion. If you're thinking about Joe Biden, which is already president and was for 4 years,
Mhm.
if you ask me why they chose him specifically, is because he is a guy that is easy to control. So I do believe that somebody else is making decisions and not Joe Biden. I
So
think
in
there is a
some,
group of people
Mhm.
which is making decisions instead of him. So they are basically ordering him to make decisions for
Well,
them.
but
It's
this
what I
is
believe.
yeah, but this is how like the American democracy, we know this, that billionaires have way too much power and they can lobby and can make these huge donations. I mean, there are candidates who are talking about this.
Yes, I do agree. However, if you're looking about Trump and Biden, if you're looking at these two guys, I'm a psychologist, so I know a bit about how you say human psychology. So what kind of people they are. So Trump is a strong personality. He's a guy that has a lot of self confidence, and he's a guy that is quite arrogant. It doesn't really accept to be controlled. While Biden seems the kind of guy that will accept anything as long as he's given a good money and a good position. He will just do whatever they told him to do. And he seems a guy that will play the game however he is taught to play it on, since he will be getting success and money, and his son will get the money, and his son he fucking did the how you say exempt his son from the law. He did that these days. So he made how you
Pardon
say
or
a pardon for Hunter Biden. That is terrible. It's terrible for
Well,
democracy.
but what the things that Trump have also been doing, he has also taken money from. He is also the Republicans are also
But you do
taking money.
agree
This is
that
the
the pardon
situation.
for Hunter Biden is a bad thing for democracy.
No, I don't know so much. I'm not gonna take a side because I don't know the context of this. I don't
No,
know
but
what this pardon means.
let's just take it on a general level. So if a president pardons his son from prosecution, is that good for democracy or bad for democracy?
I need context. I could not say just in general.
Basically, Hunter Biden is being prosecuted for corruption, for tax evasion, for influencing, how you say, lobbying illegally for certain companies, a lot of bad stuff, and he's up for many years in prison. So his father just pardoned him forever, and that is something which is at least worrying for what means a democratic state. I mean, you pardon your own
It
son.
might be.
You're biased, obviously. You love your son. You want to see
I
his.
don't know the details. Yeah, sure, but I mean, what I would expect the people on his side to be saying is that Trump is targeting people also who are against him politically, and he has been targeting
Yes, but he's
also the
also.
people.
But you
So
have to agree.
it's sort of a self-defense. That's what I would say.
Okay,
But
I
this is
agree.
too specific to
But
be bogged down.
you also have to agree that Trump has been a target as well of prosecutions, which may be political as well.
Maybe political. Yeah, that's when it's this informational warfare that is impossible to get out of. I mean, I think in Trump's case, the cases are stronger when it's the cases against Trump are way much stronger. With the ones against Biden, I don't even know. I don't even know what case it was against Hunter Biden. I don't know. I'm not informed.
But yeah, but you see, you focus yourself on studying the case of Trump, but you didn't study the case of Hunter. Maybe it's the same strength as Trump.
No, but this is newer. Yeah. But then there's a thing because I know I have such different values from the ones that Trump mentions that I wouldn't expect. I mean, he, he has said things that are problematic for democracy, like you might not even have to vote anymore. There are all sorts of they use scapegoating, taking money from billionaires and blaming problems on China and people taking the immigrants taking our jobs. Or
Also,
there's a
he
whole
said that the immigrants are eating the cats and the dogs.
X.
That's also important because
Exactly.
they're eating the cats, and that's very bad. So that's even funny, really.
But do you believe that they're? Do you believe it?
I don't really believe it. Maybe there was one crazy immigrant who actually ate the cat, but I don't think there's a rule that the immigrants are eating cats. But they maybe some psychotic guy that actually was so crazy that he ate a cat. Maybe it's one guy that did it.
It was yeah, it was a story that blew up, even though there was no evidence on whatsoever that it happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the situation
This
we're
is the
living in now.
power of media. This is the power of a good story. A good story can conquer minds and souls, even if it's a fake story. But if it's powerful enough and the narrative is good, if it's catchy enough, it goes viral, you know?
Exactly. But let's go back to what we were saying about. So, what I'm getting from all of this is that for you, left basically means woke. It basically means people who
Kind of.
aggressive attitude towards people who disagree.
Yeah, yeah. It's like if you're not with us, you are against us, and we will cancel you and we will attack you and insult you and label you and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so this is also the pandemic. So basically, this you feel controlled. You
Yeah.
think that like there is the mainstream political climate or the mainstream governing elites. They are these kind of center. It's funny because for me, I would say almost center right in the way that they're not really challenging the billionaires. Everyone is taking money from the billionaires, the Republicans and the Democrats.
Clearly, Elon Musk is the biggest supporter of Trump. That's for sure.
Exactly. So, so no matter who wins, the billionaires are in power.
Absolutely, yes.
The rest is I think at this point the Republican versus Democrats and all these culture war issues, they're just a distraction so that people have a feeling
Can
that
be.
there is still a
It
democracy.
can be. Yeah.
But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, mostly the billionaires making. But it's tricky because also another meaning of the word left and why some parties identify, for example, SENS, they identify as center left or they are present in leftist circles. And when we say left, the people who are, in my case, for example, I tend to avoid this label or most labels, to be honest, but my leftism is based on, yeah, improving the condition of the underdog, right? Improving, diminishing social inequality,
Mhm.
eliminating poverty, giving human rights to everyone, so including the LGBT community.
That's what I don't understand about the left. If you're really talking about equality, you're talking about helping the poor, you're helping the people which are the underdogs of society. Why the leftists need so much to push the progressive transgender issues, the changing the sex issues so much in the media? Because the people are getting scared. They're thinking, "What the fuck? My children will become like she's a girl now, and tomorrow she'll be a boy." The people are very simple-minded. They always take these things and they get scared by it. You know.
The thing is, there are the trans people, there are real individuals in this world who suffer from gender dysphoria.
That's for sure. I don't disagree with that.
It is intense. And right now, our best science, we don't know how to, let's say, treat this or even treat. But then in this context, I agree. Like this has become such a delicate issue, and I think we should be able to talk about it. Like there,
Well, I do believe it's true, but I need that. I think that they should take into consideration that a lot of people are simple-minded and they're traditional and they don't understand this. So they need to be taught in a very gentle way, not so much pushing them, accept this, accept this, accept this.
look, I acknowledge that leftist side, there are people who are maybe have a very radical message, but do you also that even if these people are 0.5%, the people on the other side, they will take this case, they will make a million posts everywhere about look at these extremists, and they will paint an image of the of the leftist people as being a horde of crazy
Exactly.
partying gay people, which is just not true. So there are sure some people talking about transgender, but it's not such a
I think what we should do, if you want to think about a practical solution, is that we should make meetings between leftists and rightists and publish them and just meet and talk and just show that we can talk on the same table. That would be a solution. And the people will see that we are talking on the same table. We are not enemies, we're not hating each other. We can talk.
this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to do with these conversations.
And that would show the people that we are really not that much extremist and that only a few percentage really hates the other. Just others, we can sit at the same table with no problem and just talk and negotiate and find solutions. So I think that if we can show our image always sitting at the table and negotiating and talking and debating, and then the people will say, okay, these guys, maybe they don't have the same opinion, but they are not like hating each other and want to destroy each other, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's the image they get, and they get that image from the extremists, from your side, from our side. The extremists are creating this climate of hatred, and I don't agree with that. It's
Yeah.
stupid. This hatred always divides us and creates tension and creates hatred. And you imagine, like I tell you one real story from my life, and it's a shocking story. So you know there was a president in Romania called Băsescu. He was 10 years president,
Yeah.
a bold guy, quite a tough guy. And he made some salary cuts, very bad salary cuts. So people were quite angry about that because they're losing money, right? So I was in Brasov in Romania with my girlfriend. I was 18. I was a kid, basically, a teenager. And I was traveling with the bus going to the center, just visiting the city. And there was a guy in that bus that really looked like Băsescu. He really looked like the president. And he was dressed in a suit and everything. And so there was a drunk guy in the bus. And he thought it was actually Băsescu. And he said, you cut my salary, you fucking asshole. He started to hit him with the fists and beat him on the bus.
Jesus.
He beat that guy and threw him on the floor. It was shocking. He just beat the guy because he thought it was Băsescu. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I mean, this is crazy. And can you imagine the kind of polarization, the kind of hatred people can get, you know?
Yeah.
I was shocked. And it can lead to that kind of violence. It can lead to that kind of explosion of frustration. And it's very dangerous. So It's always dangerous when you create polarization, when you create this hate speech, like you are leftist, you are woke, and you are stupid, and you are gays, and you are like extremists, legionnaires, Nazis, you know.
But that's what I ask from you. What I ask from your side is to take these with a grain of salt, because whenever you see these extremists,
Yes.
they're not necessarily representative.
Yes.
Also, on our side, we are showing the worst of the worst of the right, but there are reasonable voices. There are moderate voices in the right.
Yes, I do believe that the moderates should make an effort to create a dialogue. The moderates should make this real effort to create a dialogue, a constant dialogue between the sides.
Yeah.
Because if the people see there's always a constant dialogue, they will see that it's really not about hatred. It's about just different opinions, and we're trying to work together to find solutions for society, try to find a common ground,
Right.
to find a deal. And sometimes the deal will lean a bit to the left or a bit to the right, but always it will be a fair deal. People will accept it. So.
Right. Stefan, we've been talking for over an hour now. I have two more questions for you. So, yeah, the first one, I think I already asked, but we kind of maybe diverged a bit from the topic. But basically, as what would change your mind? So, in this case, for example, in the next elections, right? When actually, well, it's the 9th of December, the elections were canceled. We don't know exactly when. Is there a date already for the second edition of the first round?
No, but it'll probably be way back in the spring, in May or June. It's crazy. It's a lot of time until that.
But your plan is to vote for out.
I'm not even sure. I'm open to see what's going on. Really, I'm not fanatic towards the sovereign
Oh,
movement.
okay. So, but you're clearly inclined towards these more conservative parties.
Absolutely, yes. I'm a bit inclined. Yes.
Is there anything that would change your mind that would make you vote for maybe perhaps even USR or maybe at least SENS Repair or these more progressive forces?
New leaders with charisma, with the moderate voice, with a cultivated voice, educated voice, people that are talking honestly and educated.
Is it Lasconi new? I mean, how new?
I don't like her. I think she's unprepared. She's a TV star, which I don't respect that job. I think it's a job for how you say, for people that are unprepared for work.
But what about Trump? You said you would support Trump.
Yes, but Trump, I think, what I believe about Trump, I think Trump is a great entertainer. That's why he had success. I mean, he's really good in entertainment. He's a TV star. He's a real TV star. This guy knows how to entertain people.
I see. And Lasconi isn't.
He's really good.
But Lasconi, I don't even know her involvement in TV or what kind of involvement it was.
She was just a TV presenter. She was basically just a normal TV presenter. She had not really a spectacular career at all. I think she's a woman which is unprepared for this job.
Some people have been talking about Nicu Șordan, like the mayor of Bucharest.
I vote for him. I even voted for him the last election. So I would believe that he would be a voice of reason, yes, in the situation.
Yeah? Okay, that's interesting.
Because this guy, he's with Sere and whatever, but he is a bit conservative. So he's a family guy. He's a bit religious. So I do like his kind of approach to the situation.
Would you vote for an atheist?
No,
Somebody who says, I am an
no.
atheist? No? Never. Even if they had even if they promoted, look, I think I appreciate Christianity and all religions, and I think everybody should have the right to practice their religions. I personally don't believe it, but I think I want to provide an environment where people of all faiths can live together in harmony, and I want to create social cohesion.
I wouldn't vote for him. I would appreciate his position, but I would not vote for him because my system of value is so much different. So I would not vote for him. I would accept his position and respect him, but not vote for him. That's for sure.
I see. So this is what would change your mind, basically new leadership in this, let's say, pro-EU or pro-West side
New
of things.
faces, convincing faces, people that are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there anything is that the conservatives could do that would make you more skeptical towards them?
Let me think about it. What would make me to dislike them, right? So, what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
If they start to make some laws which are restricting freedom for any kind of category of people,
I see.
I don't like restriction of power.
Mhm.
Even if they're doing against gays or they're doing against I don't know, abortion. That would be ridiculous if they would interdict abortion. That would taking us to the communist times. Like I'm completely against banning abortion. That is ridiculous. And that's something I don't like about Trump. I don't like about Trump that he is against abortion. I really hate that measure. I think the woman has the right to do whatever she wants with her body. Maybe she was raped. Maybe she had the drunk sex. What the fuck? It's ridiculous to impose a ban of abortion. That is a conservative measure which I'm completely against.
If you vote for the conservatives, don't you think there's a risk for women in Romania that they won't be able to have abortions?
For now, no, but because they haven't been really promoting that kind of ideology at all. But in the future, can be a risk. Maybe if they are too much in power, they will start to push these kind of measures. For now, they are not saying anything about it, so I don't think for now is a risk. But it can be in the future, maybe. If it will be in the future, then I will vote against them for sure if they do that. So I will not accept that. I think it's a very abusive measure. And I never accept. So I like many things about conservatives, but this measure I find it completely abusive and stupid. Yeah, I think this is your decision. It's your body. It's like the vaccine, the same. It's like the same with the vaccine. So I don't accept the vaccine. Why the woman should not be allowed to make an abortion? It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking of what would be my own answer to these questions because I mean I am very in this case I also don't I mean I'm frustrated with all the political options in Romania. I don't have the right to vote. I applied for citizenship this year.
It's very weak. It's very bad. Even I don't think they're great at all. They're not great. They make many mistakes, and the leaders are not spectacular at all.
But still, I would be definitely on the pro-EU side, on anti-Russia or anti-Russia, anti-Putin, let's say.
I'm not obviously against the EU at all or pro-Russia. I don't think Russia is a good influence on anybody. I don't think they are that dangerous as they say. They are exaggerating, but also they are not great influence at all.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be friends with Russia, but I wouldn't even provoke them at all. I would be kind of a sort of trying to get around them somehow. I think they are powerful somehow, so you should kind of not be their enemy, but also not take their values because they're obviously a dictatorship and they shouldn't be admired or respected.
Exactly.
In that sense.
Yeah. I mean, I am very confident that I would vote for whoever is the pro-EU candidate if I had the right to vote.
Are you actually voting in Brazil? What is your citizenship? It's Brazilian, so you're voting in Brazil, right? So
Yeah, I voted for Lula in the previous elections. It's against Bolsonaro, let's say.
I don't know what is that, a leftist or I don't know.
Left, but I mean, left, Brazilian left is very different from Romanian left. It's the Workers' Party, so like Labor, maybe.
Okay.
And Bolsonaro was the Trump of the tropics, like the media referred to him.
Oh, Bolsonaro is kind of a dictator, right? So I heard about Bolsonaro, yeah.
Far right guy, so it goes very much against all values. So I voted, to get him out. But yeah, I'm thinking about my own because this is part of the exercise. I should ask you what would change your mind, but I should also think myself what would change my mind or how
Exactly. You
confident
should
am
ask
I?
yourself, what would change your mind to be a bit more conservative?
Exactly, yeah. So I'm trying to think of this, and but to be more conservative, I think it's very unlikely. But even this conversation with you, I have noticed that one thing has changed a bit in me, which is at least seeing, which is maybe I don't know. I'm still very confused about how worried I should be about Georgescu and the rise of conservatism in Romania. It's true that there is a lot of alarm, there is a lot of panic in the media, and I think that is legitimate to some degree.
You know what happens? Fear sells. You know, fear sells. If you're provoking fear, you are selling the news. So it's always fear is very useful for selling news.
Tricky because it's also I think it's true that Russia there is Russian influence in the TikTok campaign. There is illegal money that Georgescu is using to he's declaring zero expenses, but it's not true.
Yeah, that's a bit ridiculous. Zero expenses. I don't buy that. I don't think he has a lot of money, but zero is impossible.
I'm also afraid because, again, I moved from Brazil. We don't have war in our recent history. I don't have grandparents that went to war.
Like we did, we have actually quite a lot of relatives in the older times that they were in war. Yeah,
Exactly. Like in Romania, this is something very real for you. But for me, it's something that I consider a thing of the past. So when this war started in Ukraine, I panicked. My family panicked. They were asking me, "Are you staying? Are you coming back?" I didn't know what to. So I am scared. Like I am scared of Russia. Truly, like they are trying to destabilize Romania. I'm pretty sure. So I don't know. But at the same time, when I talk to other, like when I
Listen to me. So I tell you something with my personal life. So I worked for Russian. I worked in collaboration with the Russian embassy long time ago for many years, and they didn't convince me to sign anything to support Russia. They just gave me money specifically for a project. I did the project and went home. Nothing ever was political. So if they were so eager to get
oh
us,
yeah.
why the fuck didn't they convince me to join their cause? Not at all. They didn't give a shit about it.
Not how it works. I mean, they have their methodologies. It's way more subtle than that.
Of course they are sneaky. Of course they are sneaky. They are politicians, but still they didn't feel like they were really trying to push us to believe anything.
But basically, my point is, if there is anything that is changing my mind, is that I don't know anymore if I should be that worried. Maybe, like you said, things won't be so. Even if this guy does win, or Georgescu wins, or whatever it is, they won't. They haven't been saying very, very concrete things. I mean, I can hope that it will be not be so bad. I don't know how bad it will be. I will be sad if I hope that they won't win. But I think that this moment, this crisis, I can only hope that this will be enough for the ruling class, let's say, to wake up and to see that people are okay with the situation.
I think so. And I think they should be a bit scared of the power of the people and they should understand that they have to treat people a different way. They have to be more open. They have to create new leaders, bring more people to the leadership, which are new faces, change something. Give us a change. Give us different voices. Because we heard the old guys again and again, Ciolacu and all those older guys. We are bored of them. We need some new faces coming up and showing different politics. And then people will calm down, you know. That's how it is.
Yeah, what do you think would be the social cost for you to change your mind? Do you feel like you're in a conservative bubble? Do you think like most of your friends think similarly to you?
Not really, not really. Not really. I'm not that much conservative in a bubble. Not at all. I think
I
I'm
see.
a moderate
Yeah.
conservative. I'm not a fanatic conservative
Hmm.
at all.
Yeah. It's interesting because in my previous conversations, I was the one in the position to say that, oh, for me there will be no cost at all in changing my mind because I mean this human where we promote critical thinking and skept and being very much, free exchange of ideas. But this is probably the one conversation where the social cost for me would be because but that's because it's the first conversation where I'm tackling a topic that's so broad and where I really yeah, I really do have barely any values in common with the conservatives. And I can imagine that we could have many other discussions on many other topics, and then we can go on more specific issues. But this is one where if I suddenly became a Georgescu supporter, I wouldn't know anybody anymore. I wouldn't have friends anymore. I wouldn't know who.
You would be excluded from your group, yeah.
But I would go look for other groups. But it's hard to imagine how I would be in this situation, yeah, because I would maybe start going to church because
Yes.
then I wouldn't find
Kiss the hand of the
uh,
priest.
absolutely else. But it would have to be a complete reversal of values. But yeah, well, Stefan, yeah, thank you so much
It was a good
for
conversation.
joining the conversation. I
Hopefully,
was
this kind of
was
conversation will be useful for people to see positions and see that we're not hating each other, insulting each other, and all that bullshit. It's just we have
exactly.
different
I hope we
positions,
have more
different
of
life
it
experience.
online and
Yeah.
offline.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Hmm.
Thanks. And see you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, man.